Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Let's start as the Saints are going through minicamp. A ton of stuff there, but maybe the biggest news is that they were able to free up cap space. They got their draft pick signed, and now they're looking at free agents. The report earlier this week was Dre Kirkpatrick coming in. Let's start with a thought there, Mike, on Dre Kirkpatrick as a potential fit with New Orleans.
He's a quarters cornerback. That's what he does best. He's a tall, real thin, very lanky, really fast cover corner. The bigger, more physical receivers have given him trouble. But he's played his best in quarters coverage, which the Saints do a lot of. A lot of teams do, but the Saints do a lot of quarters coverage. And so I think he'd be a good fit if the finances are correct. Is he a long-term fill-in? No. He's a Band-Aid. Bottom line, he's a Band-Aid. He's a rent player. And that's what you're going to get at this stage, unless you can pull off a trade for a guy. But he'd be a good fit because of what he's played at Cincinnati a lot. And again, I go back to the Bengals did a lot of quarters coverage scheme, and the Saints do a lot of it also. So I think he'd be a good fit. And again, as you get older, sometimes what you're gonna get and what you asking for, and what you eventually end up with is three different things.
So what are we thinking he's going to end up with?
We'll see how all this works out with him, because once you visit and you leave, isn't that a little bit like recruiting?
If you haven't committed, you mean? Yeah, for sure.
You know, and come on, it's a little bit like it. Now, I'm not saying you can't make that deal work. But boy, I've been through a lot of these, and that guy takes off, and maybe he has to talk it over with family, other people involved. We'll see with Dre. I think he's a good fit for what they do, but always, as you get up in age, and he's past 30, that asking price and what the team is willing to pay has always that leeway in there, and so we'll see. And he may be the best option at this stage, and so you may have to pay him a little bit more, and you can play coy with it and say, "I'm terrific with the roster. I love my roster." Man, I've heard that at least 4 times within the last 2 weeks from GM and head coach. Then why the hell are you bringing in Dre Kirkpatrick if you love your roster? Come on. Bottom line is, and listen, they got some people that cover this that really believe that. And so, man, you got a major hole at the cornerback position. And you got a lot of I don't know at linebacker. You can say, okay, we've spent a second-round pick on a corner. We've spent a third-round pick on a corner. Okay, what do you really know about Zack Baun today that you didn't know when you picked him last year? Hesitation tells the story. You really don't. You hope that Pete can come in and be a contributor, and I think eventually he will be. But, man, I'm talking about 2021. That's the only season I'm worried about right now, because that's the only season I'm playing in is 2021. To totally disregard the linebacker position today as look what we've done to try to upgrade it, well, then explain to me how much better you are. You got a rookie and I got a guy that saw sparing playing time last year. Limited. And yeah, I get it. He got hurt in training camp. But when he got opportunities to play, what big plays did he make? And he was a special teams guy. Mm-hmm. So I still think those two areas you got to go out and get your people. I'll be honest with you. To me, I wouldn't feel comfortable entering the regular season what I have on the roster today at cornerback and at linebacker. I got a lot of unknowns on both spots, so I got to go get me a veteran. I do know, man, I see it because, man, it gets sent to me sometimes, videos of Quan Alexander working out.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can disregard it, and you may be right. You know, that, hey, man, we got all these draft choices. We don't need a veteran. Okay. Didn't the same people tell you that a year ago? We don't need a veteran. We got guys now. And what happened? They went out and get Quan. And so you might be in that position again this year to see what you can do to make it work with him. And I think it's feasible to bring him back. I think he would want to come back if you could find the right price. And again, if you look at fit, Kirkpatrick, having played what he's played in the past, and in a lot of quarters coverage, would fit into what you do defensively. And I think the head coach would feel a lot better, to be honest.
Mike, I did want to ask
you. If you put him on the lie detector machine, and when he says, I feel real good about that roster, I bet he's got his butt cheeks lifted off that seat. Because, he's not quite telling you the truth there. But come on, you got to say what you got to say. Because if you say, hey, listen, we got holes, then that next guy that comes in, man, he becomes Jesse James. He's trying to rob you.
Mike, all right, but wait, one more on Baun. Because that was the note I wanted to go to next, where they said they're working him at the weak side. Does he? I know we talked about it a bunch. He was an edge rusher at Wisconsin. Is he a guy that could, you think, transition and stand up and play the will spot in the NFL?
We shall see. Now, here's my thing. What was the first vision of Zack? Excuse me. What was the first vision? Middle linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what Sean said? My vision for him is that inside linebacker.
Okay.
Then they move him to Sam. Now he's at will. We'll see. Okay, he's given that opportunity now, and it's hard to judge him because last year was such an anomaly. You didn't have the rookie camps, you didn't have those OTAs, you had training camp but no preseason. And that was tough on him and Troutman and Ruiz. It was difficult for those guys because they didn't get at least that little bit of seasoning. Now this year you got 3 preseason games, and you've got that opportunity to have them in camp and working out and understanding what you have to do. And I always say, when I put people up on my board, one of the first things I want to know from that coach is, don't tell me how good he is, because I can see that. Tell me how smart he is. Tell me, can he play through an injury? Because, I don't know if a guy's hurt. None of us do. Not the way they protect, injuries today, under these HIPAA laws, and they can't give you information. And sometimes, all of us do this. We all fall into the same pattern of we maybe go after a player and we don't know that he's really trying to play through an injury. He's trying to, and he's not the same guy. So that's one of the first things that when I talk to people in the college ranks is, man, don't tell me how good he is, because I can see if he's good or not. Tell me how smart he is, and then tell me, can he play through an injury, his toughness. I think by his play, he's telling you how much he loves the game. His consistency in football or in basketball, baseball, whatever, tells you how much he loves the game. But what you don't know is about injuries, and what you don't know about how quickly he picks all this up. Again, you're not playing in the backyard, and this ain't high school football. This is the big leagues. And, yeah, they got guys, veterans, that's willing to help you out. But, man, I ain't willing to help you out that much that you might take my job. Because I want that paycheck. Come on. Common sense. Use it sometimes on this. That veteran will help you out to a certain extent because he wants to win, especially if that guy thinks you can help him win and get to another level and get to the playoffs and beyond, he's going to help you. But if it's talking about you taking his job, yeah, right. Yeah, I got mountainfront property behind my home here on the bayou to sell you, too.
Mike, I wanted to also talk while we were talking about positions and things like that, and we were talking about Zack Baun moving positions. What about on the offensive line where I know we've talked about it a bunch, but the general thought was Ruiz would play center, McCoy might play guard. Well, Zach Strief gave an interview to Cat Terrell. Sounds maybe like those guys are going to stay put. What's your read on how that shuffle may or may not happen this year?
Well, I think we all agree that Ruiz, for just himself, is a better center than a guard.
Sure.
But for the betterment of the team, he's a better guard today because Erik McCoy has been terrific at that center position. And he's on the verge of being a really special player at center. So I'm not messing with that at this stage. And I know from, conversations with Zack throughout last year, we would bring up McCoy a lot in conversations. And, one of the things he would always tell me is, Mike, I agree with you that Ruiz is probably a better center than a guard. But, man, McCoy is so good at center. Is this team going to move him? And I think if you had, let's say Drew Brees is playing one more year, you may have thought about that a little bit more. But that center is the anchor up front. People don't realize how much responsibilities go along with that and what that means to a football team of calling plays, seeing things ahead of time, picking up the blitz, everything else. It's a huge part of the game. And you got a guy in McCoy who is so athletic for a big man. And now he gets it. He understands. It wasn't like that early on with him. He had some adjustments to make. So I get it. You keep McCoy at center and make Ruiz the best guard you can make. You don't want to switch that over and lose anything, and especially now in a year of transition at quarterback, where you've got a guy now with some experience and has done it. Think about LSU last year. And you might say, man, listen, we really miss Joe. And come on, common sense. Yeah, you miss a guy who won the Heisman Trophy.
Right.
You miss Clyde. Who did you really miss? Cushenberry. Up front. Making those calls. Seeing where the blitzes is coming from. Hey, listen, I can beat that guy. This play will work if we run it this way. Centers are so underrated in this world for what they have to do, not only physically but mentally. And when you got one, boy, you keep him. And I think that once you get things straightened out, with what you want to do long-term with Marcus Williams, with Ryan Ramczyk, and certainly Lattimore comes into play too. The next guy is McCoy. He becomes the next guy you're going to have to cut a pretty good check to. He has really turned into a terrific center. And anything that Zack said about him in the offseason, he said last year, if you were listening, he kind of made that up front that, I know we kind of all feel that maybe Ruiz is better at center, but for the betterment of the team, he's really a terrific center. That's where he should stay. And he made it plain and simple. Now, was that Zack talking for Zack? Possibly so. Did somebody else tell him that? Possibly so.
You mean that happens, Mike?
Yeah, every once in a while. Every once in a while, they tell me something too. But I get it. But you understand, you're dealing with a guy that is a potential Pro Bowl center. Are you going to move him to guard? And the answer is pretty quick, no. You keep him at that center position, and you let Ruiz feel more comfortable at that right guard spot. And he struggled last year, really struggled. No matter how you cut it, man, he had some difficult days.
Oh, yeah. Mike, he got beaten out by Nick Easton.
And, and I think, veterans know when they got a shot. Nick almost, to a certain extent, was sort of hinting to you that, hey, he might have potential, but potential means he ain't done it.
Right.
And I can beat him out. And but again, I think it's sometimes unfair to look at that and see how last year transpired. I think he was going to walk in from Michigan, and all of a sudden it was going to happen for him with not a lot of leeway in front of him as far as practice time, knowledgeability, everything else. So I think it's the move that I wondered if they were going to continue with Erik, because they had talked about Erik's versatility and his quickness, his ability to get out in front on a screen play or a real quick wide receiver screen or whatever, that they loved that part of the game with him, and that he might be best suited for the guard spot. But the way he plays at center, man, I'm keeping him at center, especially in this year when you're going to have a new quarterback, when you're going to have a guy that you're going to have to help him out with some looks that you didn't have to worry about that first 2 years. Drew told you what to do. And people are going to have to get used to that too. Man, and I think it's one of the more underrated parts of the game. And it's something I questioned Sean about. We did a show right after Drew retired, and it is about this ability to understand what's happening on the field long before it happens. And one of the things he brought up was it's the hardest thing to evaluate. So, Mike, I agree with you, that ability to understand where I have to go with the football before the snap. I can call a play, but if they're adjusting coverage, then I got to do something different. And Mike New told me this about Drew Brees a few years back before he became a head coach in college football. And he's like, being in a room with Drew is like being in a room with a college history professor, and he's telling you history before it happens.
That's a pretty good way to describe it, man.
And he said, listen, there ain't a lot of guys like that. Now, again, Father Time took away the gifts that he had. So he wasn't the same guy anymore the last couple of years. He was, but he still had between the ears, he understood where he had to go with the football. And that's why I think you're going to have a different look this year offensively, is because you got to play to Jameis's strength. And that is his ability to stretch the field with the deeper pass. I think that helps out Traquan Smith, who I think that's been a part of his game you haven't been able to take full advantage of. And I think he will fit better in that ability to stretch the field. He's always been known as a good blocker. He's a tough guy going over the middle. He didn't play with a lot of confidence, and he admitted it. But I said this on your show 2 years ago. I could see it in his face. He wasn't the most confident guy. And that a lot of times has to do with understanding what you have to do every play. And he gets it now. And I think you're going to see a different player this year because he understands it more, and you have a quarterback that will press the envelope deeper downfield. The other thing, too, is part of a column I'm writing this weekend is, what did Jameis do a lot of in Tampa Bay? And you might say, well, he pumped the football to Evans and Godwin. And that's true. You know what else he did? Get the ball to the tight end. Look at those two tight ends that he played with there. When it was O.J. Howard and again, those two guys did a great job getting open for him, being kind of a security blanket when the right guy's not open downfield. Jameis threw the football a lot to the tight end, and that's part of what Sean wants to do also. So I think that, that's going to change a little bit also. Drew always loved that part of the game when he had him. If it was Shockey, if it was David Thomas, Watson, Jimmy Graham, he loved that part. And I think now man, this is a great opportunity for Troutman. Because now you're also playing with a quarterback who wants to get the football to the tight end. Not that Drew didn't, but it's Jameis's time, so you got to go back and see what Jameis did at Tampa. And he pumped the football to that double tight ends that the Bucs have. And I think it's going to be a big part of their offense.
And Mike, I have had a lot of people ask about, because I did bring up Zack Strief a minute ago, I've had a lot of people ask about the Saints radio play-by-play voice and who might be next. Can you shed any light on what may happen there?
You think you get asked about it? man, I'm like the damn unemployment office here.
Is it going to be Mike Detillier and Bobby Hebert in the booth?
Oh hell no! No way in the world! No way in the world! They don't want neither one of us around.
I'd listen.
No, because it would get to the point where it would be, about discussion about a play that happened 2 quarters ago. So, yeah. That's just the way.
Self-awareness is such a key to life, Mike. It's such a key to success in life.
No, I'm honest about it. I get asked about it, or would you be interested? And I'm like, oh, I guess not. But no way in the world. But whatever. I do think the announcement will be coming within the next couple of weeks. This is very similar to Zack when he got it, and there was not maybe a uniform agreement. Now, again, this is going to be a decision made by the station. Okay, bottom line, it's their call. And the Saints do have certainly some say in it, and they do listen. If I have not gotten 25 calls from people doing other venues, I haven't gotten a one. I mean, everybody is, because there's only 32 of these jobs out there.
Yep.
And so they coveted when you get that opportunity to do it. And some of the same names that were brought up a couple years ago with Zack are being brought up again. And again, people like Mike Hoss, who's been here for a long time, had been involved in news and in sports, and is now part. He's got some job with the Superdome Commission and does interviews on the field. His name certainly have been brought up. Joe Mars. Now, I think again there's going to be some conflict anytime you try to bring in somebody who's also involved in NBA, because there's some conflicts there. Now, you might be able to get away with that if you're not the play-by-play guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're the play-by-play guy. Come on, that would be really difficult. And a lot of people out of the state of Louisiana and some major names. I'm going to tell you that. Major names.
I believe it.
That you would not think would have that big of an interest have at least explored that option. So, they don't come to me. Don't ask. Mike, what do you think? Because, it would probably be a third person, the third opinion that they get. So, it's a job that, growing up, man, listening to those voices, and they were iconic to me. Listening, early on, Maury McGill did it. And then, Wayne Mack. John Ferguson did both at one time. John was doing LSU and Saints at a particular time. And then Jim, he set the gold standard for it on how it was done. But, Matt, I think it's going to be an interesting call here. And a lot of people that you would not think of have shown an interest. And a lot of people that do major college football have shown an interest.
I believe it, Mike. Like you said, there's only 32 of them. And in this profession, man, those jobs are coveted. So I get it. It'll be interesting to see who it is.
Gene always laughs with me about it. He was like, you wrote something about me. He said, I got mad at first, and then he said, I totally agreed with you. I've called more losing games on radio than any other person professional than any other person. Now, he said, the guy doing the Browns has caught up a little bit of ground with me. But he said, now they're pretty good, and we pretty good in Tampa. Think about Deckerhoff. In the middle of one of some of the greatest college football runs that Florida State will ever see, he was doing Tampa Bay Bucks.
Oh.
Because Gene was double duty. Gene was doing Florida State and doing Tampa Bay. Man, you talk about the yin and the yang. He had both of them, Jack.
Wow.
He had both of that. Now, again, man, with Florida State today, the tables have been turned. Man, you doing Tampa Bay football today. You sitting on Mount Olympus.
Mike, you nailed Julio to the Titans. Always give credit where it's due, and you called that weeks ago. So what did you – yeah, I think you also called the compensation, too, on a second-round pick when they thought they'd get a first. So I'd imagine your reaction, you're not surprised, but how does that impact Tennessee, who the Saints play, and then obviously how does that impact the Falcons as well?
Okay, Falcons, you did not get a defensive player that can help you. You got a future pick. I knew you wasn't going to get a number one pick. He's over 30 years old. Last couple of years, he's fought injuries. And so you weren't going to get that. And contract, okay? So there are a lot of things kind of lined up there. I knew John Robinson had a light for him even before the draft started. He had some interest. But Atlanta was holding out for a first-round pick, which, I've said it before. They can tell all these ESPN, Fox people all they want to tell them. I knew they weren't going to get a first-round pick. And so my thing is going to be a second-round pick and a little lanyap, and that's basically what it is. For Saints fans, Julio was not a Saints killer, not in the realm of Steve Smith when he was with Carolina.
Took the words out of my mouth. And
Joey Galloway, Joey, when he was with Tampa Bay, too, man, he was a pain in the Yakta Bay. Every time you played him, Joey Galloway put up big numbers. And I hope I never see Darren Waller in the NFC that you got to play him. Because after what I saw last year, the way the Saints tried to cover Darren Waller, the tight end, with the Raiders, man, they still trying to cover him. I hope he stays there. You see him once every 4 years. He put up nice numbers, but it wasn't great. But he is still an elite receiver. And size, speed. If he's healthy, he is a huge addition to the Titans offense. Again, the last couple years, like many do as you get older, the injuries start to catch up with you. And it's not the injuries, but it's how quickly you can come back. Something that, okay, I'm back the next week, he might miss 2 weeks. Who it opens up everything for is Derrick Henry. Man, I've heard all these people talk about it opens up things for A.J. Brown and Ryan Tannehill. Okay, I don't disagree. But I know one thing. If I'm playing the Titans and I don't have Julio Jones, I can put an extra safety in the box. I bracket or double coverage on the other side with A.J. Brown. Now tell me what you do if you got a healthy Julio Jones and a healthy A.J. Brown. Man, you like a turtles, you know what, you caught. You better start playing coverage. And that opens it up for Derrick. And ain't nobody want to see that big man running downhill late in the third and into the fourth quarter. Because you got yourself quite a load. And get you thinking about it. Now, defensively, which is strange because that's Rabel's wheelhouse, they've played okay. They haven't been great. Can they get a pass rush? Because that's something that has really been a missing piece of the puzzle for the Titans over the years. And, I do pre and post game for the Titans, so I'm well aware of it. And John's taken chances on players before. Isaiah Wilson, he didn't know, and now 1 year in, as a first-round pick, he's out the league. This year, you spent a first-round pick on Caleb Farley, who's had 2 back surgeries. So why wouldn't he take a chance on Julio Jones?
Yeah.
You're not talking about a first-round pick here. And, man, he opens things up offensively. And I do think the NFL now is so mirroring college football. Okay? I can have a middle-of-the-road or a decent defense, but, boy, I got to score. And I think now, even with the new playoff outlet, which is being discussed and looks as though that's going to pass, the emphasis so much today is something I wrote a couple years back about, in that, man, you better have the right quarterback and you better have really good offensive line play. And I think when you look at the Titans, man, Tannehill making that trade and getting him was a steal, because he's really played well in Nashville. Really, really has. Their offensive line, which has been sort of banged up, when they're healthy, and now they get Taylor Lewan back from the knee injury, is going to be pretty good this year. And, man, you add Julio to the mix, get ready, because it's going to be a different look Titans team with Julio and AJ and Derrick Henry. But who it really opens up things for is Henry, because now that luxury of being able to stick that safety in the box to stop the big man, if Jones and Brown are healthy, you can't do it anymore. You pick your poison now. You can't double team two guys, and you can't put that safety in the box. If you do, you're going to have some issues, because Jones will run right by you. He is still healthy, one of the elite NFL players. No discussion. He is still an elite player when he's healthy. Problem has been he's had a lot of leg injuries.
Mike, let's start with one from Shelby Kelly. Ask Mike, any guys from the Bayou region we should be paying attention to for LSU this recruiting cycle?
Yeah, there's a guy named Chaz Preston who's pretty doggone good at receiver.
Man,
at St. James. And he got everybody and their brother after him.
Ask Mike, what are your thoughts on the Brad Davis hire? I know we did that a bit last week, Mike, because I'm pretty sure that news broke earlier in the day when you were with us last Thursday. But if you want to recap your thoughts there.
Listen, I like Brad. I think he's going to do a great job here. I love offensive line coaches who preach physicality and technique, and he does it. And you go back in his history of who hired him. I think the elite offensive line coach in college football, who's now the head coach at Arkansas. Look what he did at Oklahoma. Look what he did at Georgia. I mean, and that's his protege, and that's the guy he brought in. That's his wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And Brad will do really good in recruiting. Again, that's a big part of the game. And I'm just telling you, now with what you're going to see coming about with this 12-team playoff outlet, you better be strong every year, quarterback, offensive line, because that is going to be the key to your success.
Ask Mike. This is Lenton Mobile. Ask Mike, will Ian Book get the third quarterback spot, or will Trevor Siemian beat him out?
No, I think it's going to be Ian. You didn't pick him to be a practice squad player. Because I think, in the back of Sean's mind, he's not going to tell you, but I think reading into everything he has said and the way it's structured is going to be similar to a year ago, in that you'll be able to keep extra players and veteran players and kind of hide them. Ian Book's going to be your number 3 guy.
Another text from Peyton Varnado said, ask Mike, who wins the Saints' number 2 cornerback job?
Right now, the open. You got Lattimore on one side. And tell me who's the other guy. And don't give me Patrick Robinson.
No, I'm with you, Mike. I mean,
come on, that guy's not on the roster today. And we answer that question every week. And until they'll sign a veteran, it's going to be that way. He's not here today. He's not currently. Now, he may be there tonight or next week or whatever. But today, he's not on the roster.
What's Paulson Adebo's role, Mike?
He's an outside corner. And so I think for me, he's going to play a ton in preseason. The reasoning why is, like a lot of Pac-12 players and some of the top ones, they opted out last year. And I get it. I would never be critical of that, because you know what? The Pac-12, till they saw their money flying out the window, we ain't playing. We're not playing. They basically told you that. Then all of a sudden, everybody else is jumping in. They're jumping in too. They know how to count money. They had presidents on paper. They know that. So I'm playing him a lot in the preseason to see how well he handles the speed of the NFL. The physicality part, I think he'll be fine with. It's the speed that you see each week that you didn't see in the Pac-12.
Ask Mike, this is from Mike in the YouTube chat, Stevie Scott or Tony Jones? Who do you think makes the team?
I'm going to go with Tony Jones. I was impressed with what I saw with him in the little time we got to see him in training camp. He's a little bitty guy, but, man, he can scoop, and he can catch the football real well coming out the backfield. And I would try to see Stevie Scott, the negative on him is he doesn't catch it well. He catches it, but it's everything up against the body. Tony Jones is a much smoother receiver, so I'm going to go with Tony.
IVA Bear says, ask Mike, does that mean that Hill will actually line up more? I guess that's Taysom more at tight end in a tight end type slot. When you were talking about the Saints using 2 tight ends, or were you talking about Nick Vannett?
No, I'm talking about Vannett. I think that you look at him, his experience, he's a big blocking guy. He's solid as a receiver. There's nothing that's going to go right home to mama about. But, man, that position is Troutman's to excel that. But the Saints do use a lot of 2 tight ends. They're trying to catch you off guard in an alignment. And then, Sean's, that's just kind of part of his madness in calling plays and trying to find an opening for somebody. You know what I'm really interested to see is how this opens up Michael Thomas. And I think we forget a little bit last year. Mike basically missed, 3/4 of the season?
Yeah.
With injuries. And he was a guy who was a record-breaking receiver. And now you've got a receiver playing with a quarterback that I think you still use him a lot, short, intermediate part of the game, because that's his strength. Will they push the envelope a little bit with Mike and start to use him a little bit deeper downfield? We won't know that until you see it. But it's going to be an interesting look at a player who missed a ton of time last year and was putting up numbers that just were staggering.
He is Mike Detillier with us every Thursday here for a full hour. SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com. Of course, Saints News Network over at SI.com. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Detillier and with us here every single Thursday. Mike D, you the man as always. We appreciate you. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you, Matthew.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.